Anyway, oh, I got down here and I just remembered I was upstairs and I wrote down the channels that I was going to refer to. There's the 1980 these channels that they discuss the 1980s and all the things about the 1980s that you just simply couldn't do now. It was a different time, a different place. I think Rube Miller. I'm not going back upstairs to get the piece of paper. I was literally putting the camera on the tripod and I thought I forgot to bring the piece of paper downstairs. Rube Millane. In fact, actually, Magna Lane. It's actually it's Magna List 25 and Retty History. They're talking about all the things that you did in the 1980s that you couldn't possibly do now. One of those things is we didn't have this in the 1980s. We had the big torch. Proud that I was a 70s kid, born in 73, and yeah, I think I saw Superman on the big screen. I think so. I saw Willy Wonka, Jim Moller. Johnny Depp is very interesting, very good. Johnny Depp, one of my favourite actors. I digress greatly. Jim Moller, and that's a big digressment. Proud to be a 70s kid. Now, what happened was one of the things of the 1980s, which List 25, that channel, which this whole video, I've been triggered by that video. I was hovering over it without the sound this morning. I was hovering over it. And one of the things of the 1980s that we did in the 1980s was if there was a station wagon, all the kids got in the back. They all got in the back. It was standard. And in the video it says there weren't any rules in the 1980s. There were guidelines, but people just did what they wanted. Like, you kind of just did as you pleased. Which is why it's so radically different now. I love the 80s, the 90s. The 90s were gone. I mean, I was coming of age in the 90s. I was in my 20s in the 90s. But the Sydney CBD in the 90s, forget about it. Now, forget about it. Now, that's from Donnie Brasco. Forget about it. Now, so, Long Jetty, 1983. We'd go up to visit my dad's sister at Long Jetty, right? They lived at 83, I think it was 83 Oaks. Alright? We go up there. So my dad's sister, her sons, she had two sons and a daughter. But her son, David. Look, David Heath. Look, David. He had the good old-fashioned 1980s panel van, and he did have the picture on the side. And what we do is that because Suzanne, she had Andrew, Simon, Sarah, Andrew, and Simon by that point. And so what David would do, he'd tell us to get into the back of the panel van. I'd hop in with Sarah and Simon, and he'd literally drive 5 minutes down to the beach at Long Jetty, Gosford, right? And he'd drive down onto the sands, and he drove us all around the sand, and we'd tumble around in the back, and then he drove us back. That's what we did in the 1980s. That's what we did, and that was fun. Can't do that now, it's against the law. That's why the 1980s was a very special and unique time. Really special, really unique. Can't do that now. The kids of today will never experience that unless you're in some sort of up the coast somewhere. If you're in some remote part of the coast somewhere in Australia, you might, or over in America you might, but there's so many fucking laws these days, it's fucking ridiculous now. And the things that we did were hazardous, but we didn't think of them as hazardous. We were just having fun. No one got worried about anything. There was no protective bubbles. We didn't grow up in a bubble. Like now, it's like, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. It's hazardous. There was none of that. We just did it. We got banged up, bruised, all that kind of thing. Well, I turned out all right, didn't I? Now, in 1984, the BMX Hotfoot bike Academy, see how much battery I got. I want to see my battery power is okay. My battery power is good now. That's it, just there. That's it. Very, very big sore point for me. My goodness. My goodness. So, I'm actually going down to the garage now to film this, but I just wanted this part up here. Oh, I never forgot about that bike actually. In 1984, BMX Hotfoot, right? And before that, what I did was I cycled, and the video I was watching this morning, it said one thing about these kids is that they just rode their bikes all around town during the day, and you just usually that your parents locked you back before the street lights came on. Yeah, I kind of did that, but I didn't do it all day. I would ride around. I would cycle. I had a 70s bike, and I would cycle all around Campsie, but I didn't really do it all day. Didn't really do it all day. I would do it for a few hours. I would do it for maybe 2 or 3 hours, and I'd get home and have something to eat. Occasionally I did do it all day, and I think before I left, my mum would say, "Be back for dinner." She would say that to me, and I would cycle around Campsie. I don't ever think I was on all day. Hey, some kids were. I just rode around Campsie, just rode a bike around Campsie. That triggered my memory, because in 1984, a very, very sad thing, very, very sad thing. In 1984, my parents said, "What bike do you want?" And there was this magazine, there was BMX Hotfoot had just come out. You could get it in red, you could get it in chrome, you could get it in blue, variety of colours. Chrome was popular, and so what happened was, there was a magazine that had BMX Hotfoot in it, and I had my 70s bike, which I bought from a second-hand store for about $10, and I'd had that for quite a while. And they said, "What bike do you want?" And I was like, BMX Hotfoot, red. There was a slight difference between that and chrome, but it had the yellow pads. Had red and yellow, and the tyres were red. I loved it. Mum took me to the store at Ashbury. The store, Ashbury Cycles. I don't think it's there anymore, but the shop front is. And so we went there, and I saw it, and I think she lay-byed it. She put a lay-by on it. It took her a bit of time to pay it off. And the shop owner was weird. He's like, mate, chrome, you want the chrome one? I said, oh no. I said, I don't really like that. I admire that. Fixed on the red. I wanted the red. He said, look, the chrome one, mate. The chrome's good. And I was totally fixated on the red. I wanted the red one. The red one I found to be extremely appealing. I just liked the red one. And looking back now, it's like, mate, the chrome, fuck off! I don't want the fucking chrome one. I don't want the fucking chrome one. Fuck off. Well, I wouldn't say that to him now, but it's like, fuck off, mate. I want the red. Just fuck off. Not that I would say that. It's just like, fuck off. I want the red. And I said, oh no, I really want the red. My mum says, I think he really wants the red. And the guy's like, the chrome, mate, the chrome. And I was like, oh mum, I really want the red. My mum said, he really wants the red. Really wants and the guy was like, oh, okay. And I was like, I want the red. Give me the fucking red. I mean, don't argue with it, because back in those days, shop owners sometimes would still argue with the customer. The good ones wouldn't. Alright? Now, it took my mum a few months to, I don't think she bought it outright, it took her a while to pay it off for me, and I remember one day she just had it in the back of the car. She drove down to the local park, and I must have been with a couple of friends, and this is how I think it happened. This just occurred to me. She took the actual BMX bike out of the boot, out of the back of the car, and gave it to me in the park. And my friends were like, "Whoa!" And I was like, "Whoa!" I had the bike 4 days, exactly about 4. I don't even think I had it 5 days. My mum, this is the first time my mum ever said to me, "Wherever you go on this, keep an eye on it. If you go into a shop, keep checking on it. You can tell where this is leading." So I had the bike exactly 5 days. And one day, I was with a friend of mine, Aaron Jones. Remember Aaron? I bumped into you in 1994 at Campsie Centre at about midday, and he didn't want too much to do with me. I spoke a few words. I was excited to see you, and he went, "Yeah." You went, "All right, have a nice life, bye." Now, I would cycle around Campsie a little bit with Aaron, and we went to the news agency one day, which was directly opposite the Anzac clock. The Anzac clock in Campsie was a news agency directly across the street. There used to be, it's not there anymore. It's a thing, it's a fish something. I don't know what it is now. I don't know what it is. Now, there was a news agency there, right? And what happened one day, we went there, had my brand new BMX bike, red, everything beautiful on it. So, put my BMX against the shop front, and my Aaron's bike, put Aaron's bike on top of my bike. Went to the news agency, and we looking at magazines. Every 10 seconds I kept going out to check on that bike. Every 10 seconds. I did this for about 4 minutes, and at some point I went, "Oh, it's okay, I won't worry about it." 3 minutes later, came back out, gone. Gone. My heart sank. Went home. I don't remember very much about what my parents' reaction was. Great sadness, I think. Disappointment and sadness. And Aaron was like, "Oh well." Because it wasn't his bike. He was like, "Oh, that sucks." My heart sank. And so someone's come along and said, "I'll have that," because they've spied it out. They've known that I was on it, that I was with it, and they're like, "I'll have it." And went home, called the police. We did a bit of a search, but I think what's happened, someone's taken it home and just rubbed dirt all over it and made it look messy. Never saw the bike since, and I reckon that whoever took it is either lived in a different suburb or maybe lived in Campsie and has seen me back, because what did I use after that? Well, I never threw the other one out. The other one just put it down the side of the house. So I went back to the other bike, and it was a very sad and painful experience. And I think that the person who took it has been riding around Campsie and has said, "Ha, look, he's back to his old bike now." Now, I mean, that was a really big thing to happen. It was a huge thing. The following Christmas, my parents bought me a racer, a racer. It's rusting away at the side of the house at Park Street. But I waited. They didn't get me a new bike straight away, but I did get a racer. I think it was silver chrome. I gotta keep checking the battery, because before I came downstairs the battery was relatively low, but it's still going. It's going alright. It's going okay now. Right now, I've got a lot of sadness about this. The bike that I had, the Hotfoot BMX that I had for 4 days. I might not even had it 5 days. I might not even been 5 days. And I think to myself, maybe one day I'll find it. Maybe one day I'll find the person who, because people like to brag about things, and perhaps one day I'll bump into the person who took it. How would this happen? I don't know. Maybe one day I'll be talking, because people fucking brag. They're like, "Oh yeah, I knocked one of those off once, stole it." I'll be like, remember the BMX Hotfoot? "Oh yeah, I knocked one of those off once, I stole it. It was sitting outside the news agency at Campsie. I took it." I reckon the person tells the story, and at some point they've told over. At one point over the years, when they've been telling this story, the person who they're telling it to has said, "It's not a very nice thing, but it's not a very noble thing." Like, "Oh, it was there. I took it." And I mean, the person they're talking to is like, That's not a nice thing to do. That wasn't nice. They're like, because I reckon they brag about it. I reckon maybe one day, I'm going to say, I remember the BMX Hotfoot, and they're going to be like, huh, I stole one of those once, and I'm going to be like, from where? Campsie, news agency, 1984. Oh, that was mine. Can I have it back? And they're going to be like, oh, was that yours? Yeah, I'd had it 4 days outside the news agency. Another older 70s style bike was on top of it. Yeah, that was my bike. You took my bike. Can I have it back? And they're going to be like, because people brag about things, but I reckon at some point, who are there? People are like, well, that wasn't a nice thing to do. It was there. It was there, mate. It was there. That wasn't a nice thing to do, though. That was somebody's brand. That was somebody's brand new bike. I've never forgotten about it. I don't have any memories of it. I didn't even, and when I recalled the place, I hadn't noted down the serial number or anything. Nothing to go by. I literally had it for 4 days, and I was so proud of it. Mum had spent a few months, back in those days there was a thing called, you had lay-bys, and you put the lay-by down, you spent a few months paying it off, and yeah, I reckon someone's out there like, oh yeah, I stole one of those once, knocked it off, because people get proud of those things, they knock it off, and once I had a soccer ball. I used to kick the soccer ball around a bit. Had a soccer ball back in the 80s. Bought brand new one night. And left it out in the front yard, because back in the 1980s you just left things out in the front yard. Well, depending on the neighbours. Next day came out, soccer ball is in the neighbour's yard, 2 doors up, covered in dirt. And I retrieved it and washed it all. They went, what are you doing? I said, why are you stealing my ball for? They're like, it's not your ball. I'm like, I washed all the dirt off. Look, this is brand new. They were like, they knew they'd been busted them. I took it back. They tried to argue and I said, that's my ball. That's my ball. Washed all the dirt off. They didn't say a word. Didn't say a fucking word. I mean, geez, back in the 1980s, tennis balls were flying around the average street. Windows would get broken. I used to get in trouble. I used to break a few windows to get in trouble for that, breaking windows. Breaking windows didn't really go lightly. You got in trouble for that. It cost parents $30 to replace it, and you wouldn't let you out in the street for a week. Yeah, cricket in the middle of the street. I'm not a sports person at all, period. But back then, you had street cricket, street soccer, and also, the corker? The cricket corker ball, the corker, the hard ball, we used to use that in the street, and that used to really freak the parents out, because windows would get busted, but we played with a cork ball on the street, and I tell you what, the amount of car windows, oh my god, they didn't last long. They had a bit less stress with the tennis ball, but there was actually the corker. But the cork, playing cricket with a cork in the middle of the street, that wasn't a good idea. That was a bad idea. I keep coming back here because I came down here and thing was on low battery. That's why I just have to keep going. I do try to come down here with it fully charged. And the reason I'm talking about all this is today is because Getty History, List 25, and I think something called Magna Lane, and talking about all the things in the 1980s where if you drove in a car, you didn't necessarily wear a seatbelt. And we had Pac-Man. The first computer I ever used was in 1989 in high school, and pole position. That was a real treat. Big treat, because Canterbury boys got about 3 computers in 1988, I think it was, in 1989, because I remember every time I think the computer class got introduced by that point. I just played pole position, and the teachers were as fascinated as we were. and then Commodore 64 came in about 1990, but I never got Commodore 64 because my dad insisted to have Texas Instruments, and my friend Michael and myself were the only kids. Okay, so that ran out of memory. So Texas, Michael and myself were the only kids. Michael and myself were the only ones, the Canterbury boys, that had the Texas Instruments. Keep me up with the no, fucking Texas Instruments, Texas fucking Instruments. Texas Instruments. We're the only two kids in school that had it. Commodore 64 had nothing to do with it, but the ad was on the TV every 5 minutes, and I think my dad just absolutely refused to get a Commodore 64 in the household. He didn't want anything to do with it. In retrospect, and it was only 8 years later, 8 years down the track, that pretty much realised straight away I wasn't fussed over it. Every kid in school was bragging about their Commodore 64, and I had Texas Instruments. It was just a better, just glad it went down that way. It was just better. And the internet came about in about 1993, 1994 in Sydney, Australia. I think the internet came about in about 1996, but it was not introduced to the internet until July of 1999, Yahoo chats. And that's how that went down. Texas fucking Instruments, mate. Oh yeah, Texas Instruments, mate. Texas fucking Instruments. No, Texas Instruments. Texas Instruments. Really good computer, really good. And because it had Another World on there. Another World. I saw all the games, the Commodore 64. But I didn't have anything to do with it. The Texas Instruments. Oh yeah, Texas. Oh yeah, get Texas. Oh yeah, get Texas fucking get the Texas Instruments into you. Get the Texas Instruments into you. Texas Instruments, yeah. Now, I was just thinking about something. So that kid who took my bike in 1984, now, he was probably brags to people about it sometimes. Well, yes, I knocked one of those off in the 80s. I knocked them. You know what? You know what just occurred to me? That if he's doing that, his next step might be, oh yeah, I saw a car, I got and stole the car. So at some point he ends up in Long Bay jail. So he either ends up in Long Bay, or he either grew out of it, or he ended up in Long Bay. Oh yeah, I used to knock bikes off. I moved the car, started fucking knocking off cars. Oh, have I ever stolen anything? Look, unintentionally, in about 1988, I was in the, didn't call them the $2 stores in those days. There was a variety store, and one was there was a couple of variety stores in Campsie. Went in with my mum, picked up a packet of testers, became a bit absent-minded. Actually, I kind of freaked out a bit because my mum was at the counter purchasing something. I had these in my hands, and I think I don't know, I had a bit of a freeze up and just walked out with them. And then afterwards I said, Mum, Mum, she said, yeah. She said, didn't you pay for those? I'm like, never went, didn't go back in. I kind of froze up. Is that the only time I've ever stolen something? I think so. Wasn't into stealing things at all. Yeah. I think real hard on this. I just haven't. Not something that I was into doing. Yeah. Maybe in the library, tear a picture out of a book or something that you really want, and you want to keep that picture. Never saw that bike again. So, Texas Instruments. Yeah. And the 1980s. So my memories of the 70s are a bit vague. I'm just, so the first time seeing, did I mention that part yet? I think I did, because what happened, I kept talking and the film ran out. VHS, around about 1982, my mum's dad purchased a VHS player for us. He was really into the technology. He said, this is going to be huge, it's going to be big. He bought us a VHS player, and then what happened was we went over to Burwood, to the video store at Burwood, VHP video store at Burwood. I walked in, and there's a cardboard cutout of Charlie Chaplin. There's a poster of Jaws, there's a poster of Stone for Spies. I'm like, whoa! I'm like, oh, I'm home, I'm home. And that was a huge thing. That was a huge big deal. Still got that VHS player. It's a Par Street. I mean, that's mine. Was the top opener. And yeah, VHS. Going to a VHS store for the first time. Remember Sunday nights? Do you remember Sunday nights? When you had your VHS player and you'd go to Big W, you'd buy the TAC 4-hour tape, because the Sunday night movie, sit in front of the TV. Today's kids, they had no clue whatsoever about this. You put the blank tape in, you press record, when the ad comes on you press pause, and you did that. But unfortunately what happened was you weren't getting the true version of movies, but I digress a bit, you weren't getting the true version. That's why it was so magical. So it was really good when the video store was open. When the VHS video store was open, you get the true version of the movies that way. So I saw Mad Max 2 probably for the first time. And not forgetting Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1973. But yes, so that was there's some terrific channels which have come about now called Magna Loom Lane, List 25. Sometimes the names are a little bit difficult for me to pronounce. They are, but Getty in History, List 25, Magna Loom, Lane, Loom, and of course, not forgetting Len Enders, not forgetting Len Enders. These times they won't come about again, because there's too many rules and there's too many guidelines, and people have become sensitive these days. I get a bit sensitive too from time to time, but correction, I'm actually very sensitive. I'm very sensitive. I'm the emotional type. I'm very sensitive. Yeah, varying degrees. Back in the 1980s, we got knocked about, we got bruised up, we fell down, we got back up, we said what we wanted, we spoke our mind, we were politically incorrect in every way possible, we said what we felt, and we didn't give a shit. And that's how it went. We didn't care. We cared a great deal. We were politically incorrect all the way. And you carried a beer down the street and you drank it. And geez, as I say these words to you, you're thinking, how can you carry a beer down the street and drink it? That's what you didn't. Well, I witnessed that. I did it a few times myself when I came of age, but in the 1980s, you walked down the street with a beer in your hand, no one blinked an eyelid. And there were all sorts of goodies. There were all sorts of goodies, and did we realise we were in a classic period? No, we were just enjoying ourselves. In retrospect, look back and really appreciate it because of the contrast in the change of times and the change in popular culture and style and fashion, and that's how you measure it. Obviously, that's how you measure it. Can't get these anymore. This is, well, it's not impossible to get now, but this is very difficult to get now. I bought this from Chinatown markets in the Sydney CBD in 2011. $5. They're non-existent now. Can't get them. I've given about 4 of these away because when I'd be out in the town, I'd be in the habit of have a few drinks, be out in the town, the new town, back in 2011 and 12, and usually at some point during the night a girl would come up to me and someone would say, "Oh, I really love your bandana, I love it." So I'd take it off and give it to them, knowing that I could just go back down to the markets the next day and pick up a new one. I've got 2 of those, and I've got 2 of the red ones called Black Stars and Red Star. But yeah, they don't make them. They don't make that like that anymore. They don't make it like that anymore. So yes, all right then. So that's about. I wanted to convey those things. We got banged up in the 80s, and it was fun. We did what we wanted to do. At the time, we were just living. It's in retrospect that we're like, yeah, we did what we wanted to do. And there's been huge advancements in technology since then, yes. The internet is actually quite wonderful. The internet is wonderful. Everything, information at your fingertips, rather than going down to the library and looking at resource folders and looking at files and being able to get 3 references, or two references, 3 if you're lucky, and that's it. The internet is wonderful. Really good. Addictive, but really good. Yes. Alright then. Okay. Good night, Charlie Mad Patrick. It's the 6th of February 2024, and it's about, I think it's about 5 p.m. Okay? And Landers, and I implore you, you must watch Landers. Landers, you must watch Landers. Landers, you must watch. I implore you to watch Landers. You must watch Landers. Landers. Volleyball. Dazed and confused. You're nuts, Junior. You're nuts, Junior. Throw volleyball. Landers, you gotta watch Landers. Seriously, you gotta watch Landers. Oh, you know what's just out of camera view here? You know what's exactly just out of camera view? I'll show you. My chair with my goodies on it. See? That's my just out of view. The t-shirts which I wear, all these ones regularly. I'll just hammer back up now. Let's see what's Landers. Seriously, because you know why? Because he has the best possible repertoire of 1980s and 1990s footage available on the internet. Wonderful, and he helped me on my 50th birthday. Oh geez, I'm coming up to 50. I'm coming up to 51 in April. Maybe I should start embracing it soon. No, I'll just no. Yeah. Okay. Very good. All right. Very good. It was the 1980s as much fun, and yeah, it was. It was.